Welcome to the Young Crone's Cafe, where you can get a magic brew full of all sorts of information, both witchy and practical.
Grab a cup of coffee and join us. I'm Elizabeth, a wordsmith.
And I'm Dave, a modern-day sage.
We are going to talk about various witchcraft and life topics from a slightly more mature perspective, at least most of the time.
Thanks for joining us.
Today's metaphysical kernel of thought is attitude of gratitude. It is beneficial to work at being aware of the gifts we receive, the talents we have and can use, friends, family, or other spiritual joys. Being thankful for them on a regular basis is about an attitude of gratitude. Developing such an attitude forces us to look for our gifts more frequently and appreciate what we have been given. There are all kinds of reasons for developing this type of attitude in life as consistently as possible. First, we learn to differentiate more effectively between what we want and what we truly need. For example, I may want a lobster dinner, but I can go into my kitchen and find something to eat that will nourish me effectively right now. We may want lots of things, but what we truly need to survive on a physical level is water, food, and shelter. There are many people throughout the world who lack these basic necessities, and the fact that I have them makes me damn grateful. It can also alleviate that poor me feeling when we think about what we supposedly lack or should have. In our society, we are constantly bombarded by various types of media with products that can improve our appearance, make life easier, make us better people somehow. An attitude of gratitude makes us pause and think about what is actually important in our personal lives. And for those of us on the path, it is opportunities to grow and develop spiritually. This generally changes our mindset to a more positive and open attitude. It increases our awareness of how our personal needs have been and continue to be met by the universe, and how we can continue to use magical practices to effect change within ourselves so we can continue to develop. We have learned to make the time to write gratitude lists on a regular basis. This author sometimes writes 10 things per day for a week. Sometimes I have needed to start with basic things like, I woke up this morning. If you contemplate the alternative, it makes you really grateful right from the start. Sometimes I include major things, and other times I concentrate on the small. It doesn't matter what goes on the list as long as I am grateful for it. Taking regular time to focus on all that I have makes me profoundly grateful to be who and what I am, a witch and seeker of my own path of spiritual growth and development.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Dave. I'm kind of pleased we're talking about attitude of gratitude today.
Yeah, and when that came up, we were just joking about it, but literally yesterday morning, standing at the bus stop in an urban metropolitan area, a complete stranger and I are engaged in the 10-minute conversation about how beautiful it was to wake up to clear sky and sunshine and all of that. And yeah, starting your day, especially for me, starting the day off, if I can start off in gratitude, generally I'll carry it through most of the day. It's the days I don't.
Oh, yeah, we all have those, or weeks, or months.
Right.
I mean, I first started making gratitude lists, almost 32 years ago in early recovery. I had a sponsor who's like, yeah, because I sit there and bitch and moan about what I didn't have, what I lost,
Sure. Yep. Why can't I do this anymore? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, okay, for the next week, you're going to write down 5 things that you're grateful for every day.
And they have to be new things. You can't write the same 5 every day.
Write the same things, Okay, I'm breathing. I open my refrigerator and there's something more than ketchup packets and something I don't know what it was.
Roof didn't leak this morning. Yeah,
I hit the
absolutely.
switch and the lights turn on.
Yep.
Oh, little stuff that got bigger the longer I hung around. And fast forward a whole bunch of years later, I got my third sponsor, and she has me do one every year around my anniversary, and it's a lot longer and more complicated. But the point is that attitude.
Well, and it makes sense to do it around your anniversary too, because I know from experience you often you speak around your anniversary time, and that gives you a chance to kind of review some of the things that you can speak about and some some of the benefits that you have from having walked that particular path. Sure.
Yeah, and let's be honest, and those of us who are celebrating any time of clean time anniversaries, I don't care how long you're around, somehow that upcoming date, we all get a little squirrely. And it's, is just the best way to describe it. And it's a good way to kind of center. And it's like that in real life, which is why Sue and I said, yeah, this is an important part of our practice, is recognizing that the universe is supplying what we need, as opposed to necessarily what we want. And there's a big difference between need and want, and need is something we absolutely have to survive. Food, water, shelter. I mean, once you get past that, everything else is pretty much gravy. And we have a lot of first world problems in our lives, often generated by various media outlets, that if we don't buy a brand new car, or if we don't have this color hair, or God forbid we need to lose some weight, or whatever, that's somehow lacking.
Yeah, be grateful for what you've got.
Yes.
I used to I used to tell a sort of a parable, so to speak, of a coworker who would bitch about the water cooler at work. Mind you, this is a filtered water,
it's cold,
spring water or whatever. It goes through a chiller to make it cold, or a heater to make your tea. And the cold water wasn't cold enough. And I looked this young gentleman in the eye and I said, when was the last time that you had to wake up in the morning and walk 5 miles with a pail to get water? Over a third of the planet this morning had to go walk with a bucket to get their water. Your filtered water is freaking fine.
And it wasn't clean. It wasn't cold.
It was pulled out of a river.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If you were lucky, there's...
the whole perspective, be grateful for the fact that your employer is providing you with a water cooler. Don't bitch about the temperature,
How about the fact that you have a job where you can bitch about the water cooler? I mean, you have an ability to get somewhere. You are employable.
You're working indoors.
Yeah, and there are people who, because of whatever they're dealing with, they're not able to go out and work.
Sure.
You can face that attitude back and all over the place if you want. But the point is, when you start trying to foster that attitude of gratitude, it gets easier with practice, as you said. As if you can work and starting it off every day with that little bit of gratitude, it kind of expands, but it allows you to focus on what's really important to you in terms, especially if you're practicing witchcraft.
Well, and I think, I had a funny case this afternoon where, like I said, or alluded to earlier, starting a new job. So I'm spending more time on my feet than I'm normally used to. And, every day at the end of my day, because I'm an old man, my feet hurt, my legs hurt. Today I got home and I was telling my housemate here, today I'm not hobbling as bad as I am most days. My legs don't hurt as much as they do every day. Maybe they will again tomorrow, but the point that I'm making here is I was actually practiced enough and have been working on this gratitude enough where I noticed a good out of the noise instead of focusing on the bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean? All of a sudden I was, wow.
My feet don't hurt so much.
My legs aren't screaming at me and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. This is cool.
Yeah.
So just being practiced enough to start noticing those things and calling them out. And for me, I like to call them out loud.
I do.
It's just kind of part of my shaman magic or whatever. I like to whisper to the forest.
Yeah, and like I said, it forces me to recognize that there is a universal something out there that I can reach out towards and maybe touch a little bit magically.
And you can put it in all kinds of different contexts and get faith into it and belief and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, every single one of the days that you've survived up to this point, the universe has given you what you needed.
Thank you.
Or you're not here.
Exactly. And it may not be what I want or what I think I want.
Yep.
Like I said, I use the example, I can want a lobster dinner, but I can literally go into my kitchen right now and find something to put a meal together.
I have peanut butter.
That is going to, nourish me, and not necessarily always on a physical.
Right.
Sometimes there's a satisfaction in the cooking, or I can add herbs if I need a magical boost to something, or.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I have options today too. It's not like I have 1 pound of hamburger and that's it, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. When you open the fridge and there's more than one meal choice, and what I love is the modern trope is couples will argue about who's going to pick what's for dinner. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? What do you know? I don't know. How about be grateful you got a full fridge?
Then instead of arguing about or
you've got DoorDash or whatever, but I mean, you've got food resources at your fingertips. Be happy that they're there. You didn't have to walk 5 miles with a bucket today.
There you go. Exactly. And that's a big part of that attitude of gratitude, is recognizing my life may not be some societal idea of perfect or what media says should be perfection, but it's pretty damn close. Because I got food today, I got water today, I got shelter today, and I can choose my practices.
Yeah. I live in a world, and in our case, in a nation where I can speak freely about my practices, and while there's still going to be an issue of shunning in some regions, I haven't woke up fearful of being lynched in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Or burned at a stake, or for death, or hung, or any of those things. And,
although I'm told regularly that I'm going to hell, but
that's all right. I know which friend you refer to. We still live in a nation that is becoming less Christian all the time, which is probably what Trump complains about with the immigrant problem, though I don't think he's terribly Christian either, but we'll let that one go.
What I think is neat is the country is becoming less Christian, but more spiritual. And I love that they're coming together. Yeah. It's getting back to, all right, there's 300,000 or 300 million of us. Everybody pick something to believe in and believe in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not knocking Christianity per se. It took people who were persecuted as Christians to emigrate here in the first place. Of course, they also busted up the native spirituality, which was just fine, but you know what I'm saying.
I sure do.
We are a country of immigrants, and we need to be grateful that whatever ancestors we had that decided gumption-wise to come here so that we have those first world problems that we have,
I'm grateful for the Native Americans that camped along the shores of this river centuries before the Europeans got here, because they made it a big enough and a happen enough and a positive enough place where I get a chance to live here.
Same idea.
Yep.
If you actively look for it, this is my takeaway from all of this when we talk about it, you can always find something to be grateful for.
Absolutely. On my absolute worst days of my life now, I'm able to stay aware of that and stay connected to it.
Yes.
And I say that only thinking of the experience that you and I went through losing our dear friend.
Yeah.
There was some rough days, and there still are some rough days. I don't know how much of her family still listens or not. I think her sister does once in a while. But yeah, we have tough days when that just sucked to go through that.
Yeah.
But even on our very, very worst days, we were all able to understand that, the universe balances these accounts out, and it's just a matter of us continuing to breathe and be happy that the ground that our feet are on is solid.
Yeah, exactly. And having watched you evolve, for a better word, since Sue is on a spiritual realm, for want of a better word, and not hitting you with a 2x4 right now, but watching the changes in you and the growth that you've had as a result of that, it makes me damn grateful to you, my friend.
We're right back at you.
Yeah, but I get to smile.
I don't know how successfully I would have gotten to this chair at this particular moment without you as certainly as a mentor and a guide.
And saying we are going to keep this going. And stubbornly, both of us weren't sure where it was going to change.
Yeah, so now we are rabbit holing each other with gratitude.
all the time. But it's wonderful, So
for the listeners out there, we just got done taping back-to-backs, and we're just sort of chaining together a bunch of puns.
Yeah,
but rabbit holing our way into an attitude of gratitude has not been a bad path for us tonight.
No, or in general, but for our listeners out there, if you're listening and you're not in a car somewhere, because I'm a big podcast listener when I'm driving, grab a pen and paper or get your OneNote on your phone or whatever and make a list. Find 5 things right this minute that you can think of, and without a lot of effort, that you are really grateful for. And just
windshield wipers.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Smile at the list.
I'm sorry?
When you're done, smile at the list.
Smile at the list. I like that.
Because you have stuff to be grateful for. So when you smile, you use less muscles.
Right.
And it
you
makes
experience happy endorphins.
Exactly. Your brain is like, oh, the person is smiling. They must be in a better mood, and the endorphins kick in, and it helps.
Smile at your list. I love it.
Yeah, smile at your list. Practices of the path. These are the hows and whats that we, as practitioners on the path, actually do in our own lives. Everything from the various tools that we work with, as well as those we don't and why, to the solar and lunar cycles, herbs we use, crystals and stones that we work with, candles, incenses, and anything else we come up with that can give an understanding of what we personally do with our magical practices.
This episode's kind of going to be a little bit scattered and a little bit fun because part of our practices, part of those things that we do when we do what we do, involves a lot of discussion beforehand and a lot of ideas and a lot of spitballing and brainstorming. And Elizabeth is the expert at rabbit holing.
Yes, and I think that's a good way to describe that, because we end up at point A and we think we're heading towards B, C, and D. Somehow we detour by a Q and sort of slide back to J and eventually get around to B. And that's a big part of a lot of things that we do.
Sure. I had a dear friend years ago that used to refer to it as the tangent tree.
Yeah, same idea. I mean, I know for me as a writer, I find myself in some very peculiar places at times, especially as I attempt to write more fiction than ever before. I'll write myself into a corner and go, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go next. And sometimes I have to kind of let it fester, I guess, for a while.
Simmer.
Yeah, okay, simmer is maybe, no, faster. Yeah,
all right, faster.
Because it drives me nuts.
Sure.
And I have characters that live in my brain right now and talk to me at odd moments.
Sure.
It's like when you hang out with fictional characters you write long enough, quite frankly, they become people.
Well, and every time you go through a big writing streak, I get to go through a big editing streak, and then all of those characters live in my head for a while.
And we've recovered from the hot pink.
Yeah.
We had a fight one day of about 4 hours deciding on the cover of the book because it wasn't the right hot pink.
There were two parts to my issue on this rabbit hole. One was that there was no color anywhere in the spectrum that when you put it on that pink, it would pass any accessibility tests for like people with vision impairment and whatnot. It was such a hot pink that nothing could be written on it and be considered legitimately legible. And the second part, because it was just that god awful loud pink, which now is all over the house, and I love it.
Yeah, but you see, that's what happens when you start rabbit holing too. Is you find yourself in places you never thought you were going to end up, and sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Sure.
And other times when you pop out of the rabbit hole, things have changed for the better.
Yeah, sometimes being down the rabbit hole unintentionally, you've played ostrich at just the right moment when your head needed to be down anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, like get out of the way.
Well, when somebody mentions the term rabbit hole to me, the first thing I think about, and you have known me before, during, and after this, is the lesson I had to learn with software engineering.
Oh yeah.
In that I was a 4.0 student, an independent study student, and I have a passion where I just love studying how software works.
Yeah.
But then when I got my degrees and got into a position where that's what I was to do all day, every day, what I found was I wasn't able to keep up the pace of production because I would be in the middle of working on a project and something would work in a way that I didn't understand or didn't expect. And so there's my rabbit hole, because now I want to learn why that didn't do what I thought it was going to do, or you know what I mean? Yeah. And so now I'm 6 Google pages deep, and I'm looking in textbooks, and I'm looking up on Wikipedia, and
yeah.
2 hours has gone by that I could have just said, well, it didn't work the way you expected, learn to accept that and move forward. But the passion in me, or the obsessivity in me at the time, was I'm responsible for learning and understanding why, and I felt like I had to know the why behind everything, and it just overwhelmed me. Yeah. What I found out was I love studying software engineering. I'm just not very darn good at it.
Well, you are, but in a different way.
Sure.
And then there's me who you live with regularly, and you try to give me explanations for things because you are way more knowledgeable than I am. I don't care how it works or why it works. I just want to know what button I'm supposed to push.
That it works. Yep.
That it works. You just tell me what buttons to push, and I will play in whatever program you want. I don't need to know the behind the scenes stuff at all.
And I'm still that 8-year-old little boy that's got to look inside the box and see the gears go whir and whir, and wonder how that's all happening. Yep.
Well, that's great, but that's your particular rabbit hole. And
what are you working on lately?
Oh God.
What's your current your elbows deep in and waking up in the middle of the night thinking about?
Other than the sequel to the novel, I wrote a novel, for people who don't know, called Home Place, where
it's a beautiful pink.
The cover's a gorgeous pink.
And it is available both at twoyoungcrones.com and youngcronescafe.com.
And at Amazon, if you really want a Kindle version.
Oh, that's right. That one is in both versions.
That's one of our few that is in both versions, yes. And it's basically the story of a young woman who ends up having a life she never pictured. And as part of this, she ends up in a neighborhood of the city where, for want of a better word, you have a bunch of retired gods hanging around. And then a bunch of new gods, you know.
There is somewhat, of course, it's in a very, very, very different spicing and flavor and texture.
Oh, yeah.
But recalling reading it, there is sort of an ancient Greece where, you know, you have the real people and the demigods and the gods all kind of walking amongst themselves and able to, you know, have conversations and whatnot. It is kind of Apollonian in that way.
Yeah, kind of in a very weird and twisted sort of way.
That would be neat.
Yeah, as I said, we have new gods. Like, I'm sorry, how many people have to have their morning cup of coffee? And we stand worshipfully in front of whatever kind of coffee maker we have, waiting for it at what ungodly hour we have to be up?
For the Goddess Cafe.
Cafina, yes. And she's nicknamed Coffee. And she runs a coffee shop in the neighborhood. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So we have all that going on. And as you were discussing editing in multitudinous ways, there's a book of short stories that kind of brings to life some of the supporting cast from the original novel.
Yep. I'm in the process of reading my way through those.
Slowly but surely, yes. And then, like I said, I'm working on a sequel. It doesn't have a name yet, but
okay,
that's all right. The title will come usually at the end. That's how I write backwards.
The engineer immediately thinks, all right, what is exactly the complete, like, diametric opposite to that pink? And we'll start there.
I don't know, because sometimes I don't know what the title is going to be until it's done.
Sure.
I think it's because I wrote too many, like, psychological type research papers where you have to have an abstract.
Right.
And you have to write the paper before you can write the abstract. Because the abstract is supposed to be a brief statement of what you have written about.
Right.
So I write ass backwards anyway. So I don't have a working title yet, but it's kind of a go several years 4 or 5 years in the future.
Okay.
And we kind of pick up the story of the original protagonists of this book. And
so it's a sequel.
It's a sequel. I'm just not sure what it's going to be yet.
Gotcha.
So it is the sequel. And I am currently noodling around a book that you and I are committed to write together.
Yep. I know we're starting to store ideas there.
Mm-hmm, which is in recovery, is kind of
right.
Working title. How's that?
Yep.
Because I know you're happier if we have a name to things. Where, as a practicing witch who's been around 12-step meetings a long time, it doesn't always fit the wording and so on of what you experience. So this is a way to expand on that. So that's kind of what I'm buried in.
Nice.
And I'm waiting for whatever divine inspiration, a.k.a. Sue, will hit me over the head for a topic for this month's monograph, and then that'll get written.
So, and you mentioned monographs. That's one of the things that I'm working on right now. And for the listeners that don't know, monographs are like little mini 5 or 6 page booklets or pamphlets, whatever you want to call them. That we have available on Kindle, through Amazon. Of course, you can find them on the website. But we got to a point now where we've got a few dozen of them, and I realized that the page on the website, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll forever and forever, which really feels good to realize that we've made that much material. Yeah. But it was long overdue for kind of an overhaul. So I'm reworking that whole part of the website and sort of setting up a new bookstore. However, that has, between starting a new job and 16 other things going on, that has sort of rabbit holed down into, well, I'm also going to make some global changes and change some other stuff on the website so that it can match with the theme of the YouTube channel that we're getting ready to record the intro for, and we're getting that started. And while I'm working on that stuff, the occasional odd message from our Discord server, and I wanted to call out and thank, there's a handful of people that are hanging on there and staying with us while we figure this out. And numbers go up and numbers go down, but I love that there's still a handful of people in there. Yeah. And I usually have a Discord window open somewhere. So by all means, stop in and say hello or something like that, or shoot a message.
Oh, yeah.
But that is sort of waiting on getting the Patreon part wired to the YouTube part. So, I promise there's a new website coming once we get the YouTube integration taken care of and sorted out on Discord through Patreon.
It'll be fine.
That's what I'm working on.
This is why my eyes glaze over when you do this, because I'm like, okay, I know what this is. I know what this is. I know what this is. He's got to connect them together somehow. I don't want to know how that works.
Well, and another thing I did want to call out while we're sort of just having a coffee gab here is really what we're kind of doing. I know we're talking about rabbit holing, but this is the way our conversations just work.
This is how they work.
Yeah, this is us off script, but we're doing great.
Yeah. So far,
one of the things that I wanted to mention is somebody from my local social group contacted me via text here a few days ago, and I'm very honored. I wanted to let them know thank you. I'm very honored that I'm going to be part of their spring equinox observance this year.
Yeah.
But also it brought to mind to me that, there's probably a few dozen people out there are listening that we don't know about. So please go look for us on Patreon. That will get you into our Discord server or something like that. But even in the meantime, both Elizabeth and Dave at youngcronescafe.com. Drop us a line. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what you want more of. I did mention to my local friend that we might even be able to start having some guest spots and stuff like that on the YouTube.
That's going to be fun.
So yeah, it's just a matter of once I get all of these pieces zippered together and pull the trigger, it's going to be pretty exciting. It's just right now we're all construction site.
Under construction. All I can picture is scaffolding.
Pretty much, yeah.
Everywhere. No, it'll be fine. I know for me though, to kind of swing it around to practices. When I sit down to write, I have almost like a mini ritual I put myself through every morning.
Sure.
I have to switch glasses because I am of the age where I need trifocals in my life, but I refuse to. They're too complicated to walk around with and drive. So I have two pairs of glasses. One is like distance vision, like I'm in a car. I need to see stop signs and pedestrians and just those minor inconveniences, Mack trucks, buses, and then reading if I need to, if I'm out. And then I have a pair when I'm sitting here recording with you or working on the computer that is like computer vision and reading. Right. So I can switch the glasses, and then I've always been called to a calligraphy stone for inspiration while writing. And you gave
I think that might be one of the ones that I gave you. Yeah.
You gave me an amazing calligraphy stone pyramid that I tend to pick up and hold on to. And I take a few deep breaths and say, okay, I am not allowed to delete anything I write today until at least tomorrow. Yeah. Because
that makes sense.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if I am writing stuff that's about the past or another topic or the novel. As a writer, anything I write, it's a writer's thing. I'm convinced it's crap when I first write it. And even if
you're giving yourself permission for that section to go ahead, or for that session or amount of time, that write, so to speak, you're giving yourself permission to go ahead and just crap everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. If I need to.
That freedom, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Or, like I said, I tend to look at anything, if I read it right after I write it, it's all horrible and I want to hit the delete key.
Oh, I'm the same way when I record something, when I'm trying to do something musically. If I listen to the playback right after I've cut it, I will never save a file.
Exactly. So I have learned that I just save it, I close it, and I leave it alone until tomorrow. And then I can kind of look at it with better eyes.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Sometimes if it's a monograph, it's several days, it needs to marinate in there. And I have to make sure that I say that every day. And maybe it's in that sense, it's like a mini ritual.
Sure, absolutely.
I have to set my intent that, no, I will not hit the delete key. Or, yes, I will save what I just wrote until tomorrow.
Well, and I mentioned you give yourself permission to crap everywhere.
Oh, yeah, please.
I mentioned that because I'm the same way with my drum set down here in the basement. I'm an old guy fussing around on a drum set. I was never great and I haven't been any good in years, but I have an awful lot of fun doing it, and it's a good workout and good exercise and everything else. But I have a little sort of a pre-ritual when I sit down there and pretty much give myself permission to look. There's no mics. Nobody's at the board. Nobody's recording this. No one is ever going to hear your screw ups. Go ahead and have some fun and try some interesting stuff.
Exactly.
And it gives you that creative freedom to rabbit hole sort of with purpose.
Yeah.
When I was younger as a musician, and I'm still not a huge fan of it, but when I was younger as a musician, I didn't understand jazz because it didn't follow the painted lines on the road. Musically and creatively, when you're writing and whatnot, sometimes we need to scribble outside those lines and see what it looks like out there.
Yes, we do not have to color in the lines.
So give yourself permission to rabbit hole. Yes. Don't. It's funny because right now I'm coming across the term doom scrolling, and there are times when I catch myself spending a ton of time just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on my phone. But at the same time, there's also times when I'm researching some really cool stuff and I'm learning and I'm gaining value and I'm getting positive things. And like when I go on to some of these like TikTok and stuff like that, I'm following positive people. And so I think if I'm going to rabbit hole on a bunch of people saying positive affirmations, well, so be it. That's my rabbit hole.
Hey, and it works. And the idea too, when you are rabbit holing, it's okay to end up somewhere unexpected.
Well, it's sort of the point. Yeah, absolutely.
Give yourself permission to just don't think it has to have an answer either.
Right.
Sometimes we go down the rabbit hole and we kind of go sideways and talk about stuff and we don't finish something or we don't resolve something or we don't figure it out. And that's okay too.
Sure, that's the whole to follow the filthy analogy. But at that point, you realize that at the end of the session, we're going to hose this all down and start fresh with bleach tomorrow. So go ahead and let loose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Every day is different and that's okay. But if you want to create, I don't know, a spell or a mini ritual for yourself when you're doing something that allows you the freedom, as we say, to go rabbit holing, please do.
Well, and it's funny because I was just, God, I certainly hope we don't get sued by Lucas, but I just had a Star Wars moment, the original movie.
Yes.
Where Luke goes literally down that rabbit hole to face something. I'm just saying, sometimes when we go rabbit holing, it changes us.
I think so.
Be prepared for that. Embrace it. Enjoy it.
Exactly.
And go rabbit holing.
Please do. And I think that's a good way to end this before we really get further afield and get sued by Lucas. So with that being said, with a great deal of joy, may you find mirth and reverence in all things.
Be safe, be kind, and be loved.
Practical magic for the everyday witch. These are simple spells we use that don't require a lot of ingredients for correspondences or sometimes no ingredients at all. Because we like to be able to use magic to deal with the practical everyday stuff, this is what we have to share. However, the biggest reminder about spellcraft is that the best spells are the ones you create for yourself, because they are a part of your own magic. There are 3 important components to any spell. Number 1 is setting your intent. This means that you need to be able to state clearly and precisely what you want your spell to do and how you want it to be done. Number 2 is ingredients. Any physical items you need to cast your spell, such as candles or herbs, or to act as correspondences, which are representations of something physical that you don't have right in front of you or are trying to come up with or manifest. Finally, number 3 is some sort of way to raise energy. All spells are powered by energy, and there are a number of different ways to raise this type of energy, including chanting or various movements. The spring season is right around the corner, and you're getting ready to plant your garden. Whether you are a novice or someone who lives for the returning lushness of the growing season, why not use a quick spell to encourage a healthy garden? This is something you can do before you get ready to plant. As always, intent. My garden grows in healthy ways to produce what I need for me. The ingredients you'll need is a small pot, soil from your garden, a list of what you intend to plant, a green candle, something to make flame, and a fireproof container. Simple spell chant, probably the easiest we've ever written to raise energy. Plants grow, weeds no. And here's the steps to complete your spell. Whether you are an extreme garden planner or just want to put in a few seeds, make a list of what you intend to plant. Get some soil from your actual garden and place it carefully into the pot. Light the green candle. Burn your list and collect the ashes in a fireproof container while saying the spell chant over and over to raise energy. Now mix the ashes from your list into the soil in the pot. Take it to the center of your garden and mix it into the soil while saying out loud, "My garden will grow lush and healthy. As I will, so mote it be." And a quick disclaimer, this particular person does not have a green thumb, and this one was developed by my partner, specifically Sue Weber, for her garden because she did have a green thumb and could grow anything. So it certainly can't hurt if you want to try gardening for the first time, or if you are a gardener who could benefit from an even lusher backyard.
Before we go, we would like to present you with a tip or trick or witchy hint. Just something to make your day go better, because we live in a mixture of the magical and the mundane.
Today's tip, trick, or witchy hint is all about remembering to take 5 minutes to breathe. Our metaphysical kernel of thought in today's episode discussed developing that attitude of gratitude where we can take the time to recognize things that we are thankful for. As part of our daily lives, we often get caught up in having way too much to do or focusing on things that are less than important, or we're just feeling overwhelmed by the day for a minute. At that point, I want you to give yourself permission to take 5 minutes to breathe. In other words, stop doing whatever you're doing, put everything down for just a minute, and just sit there and breathe. Remember that you can always go back to the things you have to go back to. The time will march on regardless of whether you take 5 minutes for yourself or not, and it won't hurt to give yourself 5 minutes to just give yourself time to breathe. While you're breathing, think about resetting things. Think about not worrying quite so much that the to-do list is longer than your arm and that there's no way you're going to get it all done today. Let that go. Let everything go and just give yourself 5 minutes to breathe. And while you're at it, be grateful that you have the ability to sit and breathe. So in the meantime, until our next episode, may you find mirth and reverence in all things. Well, it looks like the coffee cups are empty for this week. We hope you join us again next Tuesday, but you can find us at our website, 2youngcrones.com. That's the number 2, Young Crones.
We'd love to have you join our growing online Discord community. Check out our new Patreon presence. Just look for Young Crones Cafe. Through Patreon, you'll be able to make it to our Discord. We are also Young Crones Cafe on Twitter and Facebook.
Until then, remember, we are witches who work with energies to effect change.
We are believers in both immanent and transcendent divine.
We are celebrants of the passage of the solar and lunar cycles.
We are hedge walkers who pass back and forth between the worlds of the magical and the mundane.
We are seekers of knowledge.
And we are walkers of a spiritual tradition we call the path.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.